Hi, welcome to Spec Hunter. Today, we need to talk about something very important happening in the GPU market. And yes, we're starting with NVIDIA, because they've caused a lot of chaos this time. The RTX 50 series had one of the worst launches. In recent memory, everything about it just went wrong. From overpromising and under-delivering, to hardware problems, stock shortages, and even software bugs. It's been a mess from top to bottom, and many users are frustrated. Let's start with the launch. NVIDIA made bold claims before the cards were even released. They said things like, the RTX 5070 would perform like the RTX 4090. That sounds incredible, right? But when people actually got the card and tested it, they quickly realized something was wrong. The 5070 couldn't even beat the 4070 Ti. In fact, it only performed at a similar level to the 4070 Super. That's a big difference from what was promised. So many people were disappointed. It feels like NVIDIA tried to trick users with clever marketing. The only feature that really makes the RTX 50 series stand out is something called multi-frame generation. To keep it simple, I'll just call it MFG. This technology uses AI to create extra frames in a game. So instead of your system rendering each frame from scratch, MFG helps by filling in the gaps. As a result, your FPS can increase 2 or even 3 times. That might sound great, but there's a trade-off. When you use MFG, the image quality drops. You start to notice visual issues, like blurry textures or ghosting. It also increases input lag, which makes your controls feel slower. This is especially bad for competitive games. That's why many popular esports titles don't even allow features like MFG. They want clean, responsive gameplay. So yes, your FPS might look higher, but the experience isn't necessarily better. And this is where things get really interesting. If we remove MFG from the picture and just look at raw performance, the RTX 50 series doesn't offer much improvement over the RTX 40 series. Except for the RTX 5090, every other card feels very close to what we already had. That includes the RTX 5070, 5070 Ti, and even the 5080. This is exactly the same problem people complained about during the transition from the RTX 30 to the RTX 40 series. Back then, the cards below the 4070 didn't offer a big jump in power either. But this time, it's even worse. The difference is almost nothing. Take the 5070 Ti, for example. NVIDIA wants us to think it's a major upgrade. But if you look at the benchmarks, it's barely better than the 4070 Ti. Some people are even calling it the 4070 Ti Super Plus as a joke. That name actually makes more sense. So now imagine how weak the standard 5070 is. At this point, it feels like we're just getting rebranded cards with fancy names. Let's talk about pricing and stock. In the past, even if the product launch was bad, we could still find GPUs on store shelves. But this time, things are worse. Most of these cards didn't even reach the market properly. When the price chart was first released, people were happy. It looked like NVIDIA had dropped prices on all cards except the RTX 5090. That gave some hope. But that hope didn't last long. NVIDIA quietly shifted its focus to AI. They started producing more GPUs for artificial intelligence and less for gamers. That meant fewer gaming cards in the market. And since NVIDIA is such a popular brand, the few units that did get released sold out quickly. Partners like Asus and MSI usually charge a small premium on their cards, maybe $20 to $100 more. But With this shortage, the prices went crazy. Some cards were being sold for nearly double the MSRP in certain countries. The RTX 5090 in particular saw insane prices. In some regions, it reached $4,000. That's simply not okay. Just finding a card is difficult, and buying one at a fair price is almost impossible. But the problems don't stop there. Let's talk about the hardware. The RTX 50 series has some serious manufacturing issues. And not just one or two small ones. There are 4 major problems. The first and most dangerous one is the missing ROP units. ROP stands for Raster Operations Pipeline. It's a key part of the GPU that helps render images. If the ROP count is lower than it should be, your GPU performance drops. And in some RTX 50 cards, people are discovering that the ROPs are missing. This is a manufacturing defect. The scary part is that many users don't even notice. If you're not an expert in GPU specs, you might never find out. Imagine saving money for months to buy a 5087 and then getting performance like a 4070. That's just unfair. If you have a 50 series card, I highly recommend downloading GPU. Check the ROP count. If it's lower than expected, ask for a replacement immediately. This should not be happening. The second issue is with the power connector. NVIDIA uses the 12 volts 2x6 cable for both RTX 40 and 50 series. But this cable has known problems. If it's not connected properly, or if it gets hot during long gaming sessions, it can melt or even burn. That's a huge safety risk. NVIDIA isn't the only one responsible here. There's a separate group that manages connector standards, but the problem is still happening. It's especially common with the RTX 5080 and 5090. So if you're using those cards, please be very careful. Make sure the cable is plugged in properly, and try to avoid bending it too much. The third issue is about physics support. If you don't know, physics is a feature that adds realistic physics effects to games. It was more popular in older titles. NVIDIA used to support this with special hardware inside the GPU, but now, they've completely removed physics support from the RTX 50 series. Most new games don't use it anyway, so NVIDIA probably thought it wasn't worth keeping. But here's the catch. If you like older games that rely on FICs, you might run into problems. The game might not look right or might not even work properly. You may have to take extra steps just to get it running. On the bright side, NVIDIA made the physics source code public. That means the gaming community might step in to help. The fourth issue is PCI Express 5.0 compatibility. RTX 50 cards are supposed to work with this new standard. But some users are facing issues when installing these cards on motherboards that support PCIe 5.0. Usually, you need to update your BIOS or change a few settings. But not everyone knows how to do that. This can be very frustrating, especially if you just bought a high-end GPU like the RTX 5090. Compatibility should not be an issue with modern hardware. Yet here we are, and now, let's talk about software. Normally, NVIDIA has a strong reputation here. Their drivers are known to be stable. But this time, something changed. Recent driver updates have caused a lot of trouble. People are reporting black screens, random crashes, and performance drops. This is not what we expect from NVIDIA. If you're using one of their cards, be careful with new updates. Don't install the driver right away. Wait for the hotfix version. That one usually comes out a few days later and is more stable. Now let's take a break from NVIDIA and talk about AMD and Intel. Both companies are stepping up and becoming stronger competitors. Starting with AMD, they said before that they wouldn't compete in the high-end space with the RX 9000 series. But that changed recently. They launched the RX 9070 XT and RX 9070. These cards are meant to compete directly with NVIDIA's 5070 Ti and 5070. And they're doing a great job. AMD offers better pricing and more stock. That means more people can actually buy their cards. They also improved ray tracing and added frame generation features. And the best part, their software is solid now. Remember the Wattman issues? Those were fixed in the RX 7000 series. You don't have to worry about that anymore. AMD was relaxed with the RX 7000 launch, but now they're getting serious. With the RX 9000 series doing well, we can expect them to push even harder. Now, let's talk about Intel. They're the newest player in this space, but their entry has been impressive. They released the B570 and B580. Between the two, the B580 is more interesting. It offers performance similar to the RTX 4060 Ti, but it comes at a much lower price. It also includes 12 GB of ROM and ZES support. The price ranges from $250 to $350, which is great for budget gamers. The cooling performance is much better. This time, older Intel cards like the A750 had overheating problems. But all versions of the B580, even the dual-fan models, run at good temperatures. Power usage is also improved. However, Intel still has some driver problems. They are working on it, but you might see bugs in some games. There's also a big issue when using older CPUs. If your system doesn't support resizable bar, performance drops. So if you're using a CPU older than Ryzen 5000 or Intel 12th Gen, you might not get the best results. To sum it all up, NVIDIA is clearly struggling right now. They overpromised and underdelivered. Their cards are expensive, hard to find, and full of issues. AMD, on the other hand, is gaining momentum. Their new cards are strong, affordable, and reliable. Intel is making a solid entry into the budget space. If they keep improving, they could become a big player in the future. Before we end, I want to say one final thing about NVIDIA. GPUs are now very important for artificial intelligence. The more CUDA cores, tensor cores, and memory a card has, the better it performs in AI tasks. NVIDIA makes a lot of money from this market. Cards like the H100 and A100 are in high demand. That's why NVIDIA has moved most of its production toward AI GPUs. And that's also why the RTX 50 series feels like an afterthought. They simply didn't give it the attention it needed. Thanks for watching Spec Hunter. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future updates.